Honorable Minister, the Chief Economic Advisor, Dr. Subramaniam, Dr. Adya, Chandrajit Banerjee, ladies and gentlemen. This year's Vibrant Gujarat and the accompanying sessions have been extremely special. Yesterday, the whole day, the Honorable Prime Minister was here. Yesterday and today, on 2 days, I've been here. A large number of our other colleagues from the Government of India are here. And on a lighter note, ministers from the Government of India have participated in Vibrant Gujarat after 10 years. While both the distinguished speakers who spoke after Shri Saurabh Patel, Dr. Subramaniam and Dr. Adya were making their points on why people must invest in India. I was just scribbling a few notes on why people stopped investing in India in the first place. And I think that's an important lesson for us to learn. India is perhaps in terms of population, the largest democracy. Your decision making itself has to be effective. In terms of governance, we must have credibility. And I think it's about time we got out of the traditional mindset frames. I've been saying for the last 2 years, and at the cost of repetition, I'm repeating it. I've always believed that India and the Government of India must be led always by a political leader of stature. In democracies, it's always the Prime Minister who has the last word. The Prime Minister must be decisive. He must be willing to take consequences of whatever he decides. You cannot create structures outside the government which have an ability to overrule a Prime Minister. And the issue of growth, development has to rise above politics. And therefore, Dr. Subramaniam rightly mentioned, and I had said this yesterday here, that the fact that state after state now are trying to hold investor conferences, I think is a great sign for Indian democracy. Late last year, the Madhya Pradesh government had it, the West Bengal government had it last Monday. I had an opportunity and privilege of attending that. And Gujarat, as usual, is having its conference every 2 years. In fact, I had attended as a Commerce and Industry Minister in Mr. Vajpayee's government the first Vibrant Gujarat. This was a conference in a very modest-sized auditorium in Ahmedabad city, the town hall. And at that time, this is what we thought Vibrant Gujarat conference would be like. And today, it apparently has become one of the foremost economic conclaves as far as India is concerned. In order to attract investment, you must have stability of policy. That is what the Prime Minister said yesterday. Your direction must be clear. And the pace of moving on that direction must be reasonably quick. I had said this at the CEO's convention last evening, that the biggest criticism I have seen in the last 1 month of our government is, why have you taken decisions so quickly? You should have waited till the cows returned home, till the opposition decided to allow the Rajya Sabha to function. Why are you resorting to a faster means of taking decisions? In fact, that's been a criticism. And we did take decisions the right way, because that was also intended to convey a message to every Indian and to investors all over the world that even if one house of parliament takes some time to settle down and start functioning, India cannot stop functioning in the meanwhile. India must continue to grow at a pace. And I think it's about time, what we've said repeatedly, that India has to get over these traditional mindsets of projecting whether you want to be branded as pro-industry, pro-business, pro-economic activity, or just pro-poor. Distribution of poverty without growth is not a solution to India's problems. And one of the tragedies of the last 1 decade was, we didn't encourage production, we didn't encourage growth. We just concentrated on the distribution mechanism of what we already had. And that's probably one of the reasons why we slowed down. Having said this, India unquestionably needs investment. We probably may succeed in stopping a reverse journey of investment leaving our shores and going outside, something which was happening in the last 3-4 years. Attracting investment into the country, because there's a huge distance which we still have to travel. The tribal areas of India, the eastern states of India, the people of India living below poverty line, none of them can grow unless there is a very strong and a powerful economic activity which is pushed up as far as the country is concerned. In the last 7 months, bearing this in mind, this is precisely what the government has done. We've opened up several areas of investment. Insurance was pending for a long time. In fact, one of the powerful reasons why we came out with an insurance ordinance was that how do we arouse the confidence of investors if India is going to take 10 years to decide what to do with its insurance policy? If a policy decision with regard to the insurance sector, you can have indecision for a period of 10 years, this certainly not is a very exciting situation as far as Indian investment scenario is concerned. We wanted to settle this debate once and forever. On the defense sector, we are amongst the largest buyers in the world. And somehow we had a mindset, even when the last government decided to raise the investment limits, defense is a sensitive section. We must not allow foreign investment. And that obsolete thought prevailed in the government's decision making. You can buy 100% of your requirements from foreign governments, from companies controlled by foreign governments. from internationally private companies. But if you are going to set up a company with a 51% Indian control, with a lot of foreign technology, foreign IPR, intellectual property, and a foreign equity participation, somehow the thought process in the government was this had to be stopped. Mr. Vajpayee's government had raised it to 26%. We took the first available opportunity in raising it to 49%. In sensitive cases, we've said, in selective cases, we are even willing to go beyond that. If 100 smart cities are to be created, and as against traditional cities, we've seen the facility of smart cities. Gandhinagar, where you are currently seated, is a smart city. The first Indian smart city to be created probably could be Chandigarh. There are now satellite cities around Chandigarh which are being created. Noida and Greater Noida on the outskirts of Delhi. New Raipur in Chhattisgarh. Now these are recent experiments we've made and good experiments we've made. And therefore, so that foreign capital, international capital is available to them, we've opened up in that sector, we've liberalized in that sector. So even 2-tier and 3-tier cities are allowed. Investment in infrastructure in the railways has been allowed. We had a very important responsibility, something which had scared investors away, was a highly adversarial tax regime in India. Things may not change overnight, but the present government is determined to have a perfectly non-adversarial tax regime. And therefore, one of the first assurances, the cushioning that we gave to the foreign investors was that this government does believe that the retrospective taxation idea was a defining moment against investment in India. It made a material difference, and this government has no intention of using that provision. For past dispute, a very few ones pending before tribunals or courts, we are waiting for the verdicts to come. Publicly, the government has taken a position that an aggressive tax regime in which investors had a lot of grievances. And when I sit with my team of civil servants preparing for the next union budget, not one of those identified cases has brought me anything. It's only brought a bad name to investment and a bad name to India. And therefore we are seized of the matter, and putting a quietus to most of those disputes is a clear roadmap that this government has chalked for itself. We are creating mechanisms inside the revenue department